Hey everyone, Clio here and welcome to my channel, and today I wanted to quickly do a little book talk just because I had originally made a reading vlog for this one, but my footage was out of focus, and so that one didn't come true. And I feel like if I'm going to fully discuss this book in my wrap-up, it's going to be a too long wrap-up. So I'm reintroducing book talks to my channel, and so I wanted to talk to you guys shortly about, quickly about The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto by Mitch Albom. This month, the month of April, I'm mainly reading books by authors that I've really enjoyed, so from some of my favorite authors, and Mitch Albom is one of them. So I've read multiple books by him that I've really enjoyed. I'm kind of on the fence with him at the moment, where I feel like he has a lot of spirituality in his books. His books tend to have somewhat of a to discuss certain mystical elements and to kind of discuss the meaning of life and things like that. But so I'm currently a little bit on the fence about his writing. There are elements to this that I really like, and those are the elements that first drew me to his writing. But over the years, my take on religion and on my own spirituality has changed a lot, and that has also kind of changed my opinion about Mitch Albom, because I do feel like spirituality is a big part of his writing, and it is also clear what his religion is, what his beliefs are, and so I feel like those come across maybe a little bit too strong in his books. But so without further ado, let's talk about it. So The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto is a book that is narrated by music. So music is telling us the story of this guy called Frankie Presto, who came into this world, and the first thing he grabbed was music. So he grabbed a talent for music, a talent and a passion that will be the driving force throughout his life, that will determine a lot of his choices throughout life and the way that his life will develop. So Frankie Presto is born in Spain in the middle of civil war. Due to circumstances, his mother passes away, and he's left behind by his first ever caretaker. He then finds a happy home with a person he calls his papa, and early on his papa discovers that his son really reacts a lot to music. And so he kind of sets Frankie Presto on this path by really pushing music on his son, really realizing that his son needs to learn music. And so Frankie Presto learns music, and through circumstances he moves to the US and stuff like that. And so we're following him through his life's journey, through his musical career, through his musical influences. And that's all that I'm going to say plot-wise about the book. I thought that this was really well done. It's really fast-paced. I think Mitch Albom is really good at fast pacing, so I at least always fly through his books. It is a little bit of magical realism in this case, because Frankie Presto is gifted a guitar at some point, and this guitar has magic strings that turn blue when a life has been altered by Frankie Presto. And so that's the magical realism elements to it, so take it as you want or leave it. But I do feel like it's light on the magical realism. What is, however, a problem for some, I mean, it was a problem for me. It's kind of explained later on, but I do feel like the explanation doesn't warrant the reality of the plot development. But so it does in parts really feel like things are coming together so easily. Yeah, and things are happening that are really somewhat unbelievable, you know. He finds back a lost dog at some point, even though he has crossed from Europe into US, for example. And so these types of things really kind of take you out of the story, in my sense, a little bit. It kind of make you go like, nah, that wouldn't really happen, you know. So you need a little bit of suspension of disbelief for those scenes. As I've said, later on they are explained, but I don't necessarily like that explanation. But so in any case, I do think it's very fast paced, you fly through it immediately. I was super hooked into this world. It is set in our world, but you can clearly see that Mitch Albom has an affinity with music himself. He was apparently in a whole lot of bands himself throughout his life, and so that he is really writing from a passion for music himself. But so you really feel this richness of the history of music throughout, and I definitely was transported into this story, and I really wanted to get along with it, to go through it and figure out what was going to happen. My main problem with this ended up being the ending. So I feel like in the ending, this whole sort of spirituality problem that I hinted at the beginning was a problem for me. So I felt like certain choices were made in terms of the ending of our character. We know from the very beginning that music is there to reclaim the soul of Frankie Presto, so we know from the beginning that we are going to watch his death at some point. And I feel like choices were made in that scene that didn't necessarily sit well with me. And then also, as I said, that explanation of like the whole like unbelievable elements, I could have done without it. I could have done without Frankie Presto finding out every single mystery about his life. You know, in life there are always going to be unanswered questions, and I like for those questions to remain unanswered in a book. So those are my problems with it. Up until like that part of the novel where we're really like rounding off the story and stuff like that, I really liked it. I thought it was going to be a 5-star read at that point because, like, as I said, I really loved it. I was so transported. I loved the style. It is also intermixed with interviews by these famous characters that kind of like give a fictional account of their life, in which there is this Frankie Presto inserted that normally wasn't there, of course, in their real life events. And I really was so transported, was so transfixed, but then that ending knocked it off, and so I'm only giving it 4-star in the end. But I would definitely highly recommend, also just because I know that the things that I don't like about this ending are things that a lot of people will like. A lot of people will definitely like this sort of ending because it is like a well-rounded ending, and because there are certain elements to the story that you're like, oh, he will never know, I wish he knew, and he does find out in the end. And so for those people, this is definitely not going to be a problem. So I would definitely highly still recommend everybody to read this book. And as I said, I still gave it a 4-star rating, even though I had problems with the ending. So I definitely think it's highly worth it. What I definitely will say is, if you like The Book Thief, this is definitely reminiscent of The Book Thief because of the whole idea of death as a narrator in The Book Thief, music as a narrator in The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. If you liked Daisy Jones and the Six, I would also definitely recommend Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. In general, I recommend to have the audiobook, but especially if you liked Daisy Jones and the Six, because this also has a full cast. And while Daisy Jones and the Six is almost solely written in interviews, I think here we do get narration, but it is interlaced with interviews, and so it definitely did remind me of Daisy Jones in that sense. And just of course the focus on music. I feel like a lot of people have had that feeling with Evelyn Hugo or with Daisy Jones, that they really wanted to follow that career, they really were engrossed with it. I didn't necessarily have it all that much with those two. I had figments of it, but not to the extent that I had with Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. And then on the cover of this book, it mentions if you like Forrest Gump, and I definitely see that comparison as well, because like Forrest Gump, this is very much a story in which you're following this one character who like kind of gets into all sorts of shenanigans and seems to be running from one crazy adventure into the next one. And this is definitely also the case here to some extent, as in like his life story ends up being super crazy. You know, if you think about it, all the things that he has managed to do, all the types of bands or all the types of connections he has been able to establish with these very important musicians. So it's very much Forrest Gumpy in that sense. So the one thing that I will say about Mitch Albom's writing after having read this is that first of all, this is definitely my favorite book of his at this point. So I would definitely say, if you want to get into Mitch Albom's writing, try this one. But I do feel like the problem that I have at this stage in my life with his writing is that he talks about these mysterious elements, these big questions in life that we don't really have answers to, that we can only ever like have hypotheses about, but we can never have proof about something. We can have beliefs about them, and we can be 99.9% sure in our mind, maybe even 100% sure in our mind of a certain reality, but we cannot prove that reality. And he will talk about these things from a perspective of an omniscient narrator. Thus, it seems like he is providing the proof, you know. And that is my qualm with this. For example, without getting into religion or spirituality, because that can get kind of dangerous to discuss views about that on the internet, but he talks about music. So his narrator is music, and so music makes statements about musicians, about following the musical career, and because music is narrating this, he makes this seem like they are absolute truths, whereas we cannot really know that. And yes, I approve of the message that you don't need to resort to alcoholism or to substance abuse to be able to talk to your muse, but it still set me off to have like the character of music really go like, no matter how much alcohol you have, you're not getting any closer to me as an sort of inspiration than you naturally already are. So I applaud the message there. I just have problems with that message coming across that strongly from a like sort of omniscient narrator, and that is just totally on me. I mean, I guess I have a problem with authority maybe in that sense. But so in any case, I thought I just wanted to quickly go over this book because I feel like it's not really talked about that much. That's really a shame, because I definitely think that this is a great one. And will it make it onto my list of top books for this year? I hope that there are other books that manage to be like a full experience for me a little bit more, you know, that I get to my 5-star rating. But it's definitely a memorable book for me. It's definitely one that's going to stick with me for a little bit. So I would highly encourage you all to read it. Let me know down below if you have actually already read it, so we can kind of discuss some things about it, or if you have read any of his other works. So yeah, let's talk about it in the chat below, and then I'll see you guys for the next one. Bye!